Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the very first special committee on reducing red tape in the city of St. Louis. Let's call the order here, Madam Clerk.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Narayan.
Here.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Here.
Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Velasquez.
Present.
Alderwoman Sanye. Chair Oldenburg.
Present.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Sanye. We have 4 present. You have a quorum.
So sorry,
Okay.
I couldn't get unmuted. This is Alderwoman Spencer.
Okay.
Thank
We
you.
have 5 present.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Thank you, Madam Clerk. So I think it's always important to start with kind of a mission statement, and I first want to thank Alderwoman Velasquez for her initial help, and the President's office for helping stand up this committee. As you know, this committee was created via resolution of the Board of Aldermen. Special committees are done in that manner. But also this committee was created out of what I believe is prolific frustration from businesses, entrepreneurs, organizations, city leaders, and members of the public that transact with the city on a daily basis. And I think my fellow committee members here would agree with me that government is and should be a place where we come together to help people. And it should not be a pitfall of excessive bureaucracy, but rather a platform that is efficient and helpful to enrich lives and the quality of life for our city. So this committee's work will be twofold. We will solicit feedback from the public in order to identify strategies to protect investments of business owners and entrepreneurs, reduce any unnecessary laws, regulations that might be barriers to the growth of our local economy. Moreover, or secondly, rather, it will also recommend other actions or policies that will improve and strengthen our city by way of making government faster and cheaper. Along those lines, we are incredibly fortunate to kick this committee's first meeting off with a presentation from experts. The Institute for Justice has agreed to help us in our quest here to reduce red tape in the city. And they're going to start us off by presenting a report that they concluded called Barriers to Business. So at this time, Jennifer, Jesse, or Ava, I'm not sure which one wants to start, but I'm going to turn it over to you folks to maybe introduce who you are, who the Institute for Justice is, and some of the work you're doing around, this mission.
I have to swear them in. So if you all will hold your right hand up. Ava, I need you to take off your unmute. Okay. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. You may proceed.
Great.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. I'm going to share my screen, so bear with me for 1 second. Start broadcast. Okay, and then there we go. All right, can we all see my slides? Knocking down barriers to business in St. Louis. Okay, great. Great. So yeah, my name is Jenny McDonald, and I'm joined by my colleague, Ava Mooten-Johnston. And we are from the Institute for Justice, which is a national nonprofit law firm that advocates for entrepreneurs across the country. Ava and I are on our activism team, which means that we get to do a lot of legislative work, working with communities and training people to be their own advocates, doing a lot of grassroots organizing and that sort of thing. We also are part of our Cities Work team, and Cities Work is an initiative of the Institute for Justice, where we partner with cities to help them identify regulatory pain points that entrepreneurs face in cities and then help them remedy some of those regulatory issues so that more people can have access to entrepreneurship. So here's just a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. Essentially, we're going to tell you a little bit about our research and our initiative, and then get into some specifics about what the regulatory environment for small businesses is like in St. Louis, and then present a plan of action for how that we can possibly work together in order to reform some of these regulations to promote entrepreneurship in the city. So like I said, we partner with cities and we come in, and because we're a nonprofit and we are generously funded by the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation, we are able to work with cities free of charge. So we do everything from researching your code and your website to meeting with entrepreneurs and other folks in your ecosystem and turning those into policy recommendations. And then we work with you to help you implement those recommendations as well. What we're not going to do is just drop a bunch of research on you and then walk away and let you figure it out. We really want to be a partner and help improve things for small business owners as much as we can. And a big part of that is working collaboratively with city council, with other city staff, identifying how we can all use our talents and our knowledge base to identify the best way that we can move forward. We approach our research and our work first and foremost from the entrepreneur's perspective. So if I'm a small business owner, what fees and compliance costs and things like that do I face at all levels of government? And this process really only works if we work as a community and make sure that as many diverse voices as possible are brought to the table. And so we started doing this work when we launched a report called Barriers to Business. And we looked at 20 cities across the United States, and we documented the costs, the delays, and the complexity for starting 5 common small business types in cities across the country. St. Louis was one of those cities. And so we were able to do some research on St. Louis and then compare the city to other cities in the country to develop some of the best and worst regulatory practices. So people often ask us, which city have you looked at that is the best for small business owners? And we really don't have an answer to that because some cities do some things really well and can improve in other areas and vice versa across the board. So we really find that this is a multifaceted approach and a really interesting problem that has a very diverse set of solutions. And so we're committed to helping you in St. Louis find what those solutions can be. A little bit about our research. We wanted to make sure that when we were selecting the 20 cities that we studied, that we had a decent kind of diversity in their geographic location, in their population, as well as, is the city somewhere that we can do this type of research? Is there a desire for improving things for small businesses? Is there a good entrepreneurial spirit in that city? And so we use that to come up with our final list of 20. And as you'll see, St. Louis is our example for Missouri. And we looked at kind of 2 different sets of regulations in doing our research. And the first part is the more general stuff. So things like, how are businesses licensed? Are they licensed based on the activities that they do? Are they licensed based on their tax status? How complicated is it to get a business up and running? We looked at notable roadblocks, such as barriers for folks with criminal history from getting certain business licenses and permits. Are there any strangely high fees or difficult deadlines or things like that? As well as, how well does the city do when it comes to making accommodations to help new and small businesses get going? And we also looked at what we call the one-stop shop. And we'll get into that in details a little bit later, but essentially we graded each city's website on how well they walk the entrepreneurs through the business startup process. And then when we got down into the specifics, the column on the right here are all of the metrics that we quantified for each of these 5 common business types. So we selected a restaurant because it's one of the most common small businesses that we see. We selected a bookstore just to stand in as a general retail store. We had to make very specific assumptions about each of these businesses to know how they would fit into the regulatory scheme. So, how many square feet would the location need? How much money would be spent on renovations and things like that? We also wanted to make sure that we looked at mobile businesses as well, which is why we selected food trucks. And then we wanted to look at some of the state level licensing that barbers and cosmetologists deal with as well, and how those interact with city laws. And then we also looked at a home-based business as well, because home-based businesses have some of the lowest barriers to entry for folks just starting out on their entrepreneurial journey. So we wanted to see how easy or difficult it was to start in your own home. So this is these are the overall report results. So you can see on average, it costs over $5,000 to start a restaurant in cities across the country, and that's broken up across 13 different fees. We also looked at, how many steps does it take and how many different agencies are involved, so how many times did folks have to go to different city offices, interact with different people, do things in person, which takes up a lot more time than if you're able to do things online, and things like that. We also did, we also did a little bit of look at zoning and things like that to see how that affected small businesses as well. And then another key component of this work is really getting to meet the small business owners and entrepreneurs and talk with them. And so this is Tamika Steigers. She owns a natural hair braiding salon in the Del Mar neighborhood of St. Louis. And Tamika really told us about how she had to spend so much time in getting her business up and running by going to different city offices in person and things like that. And every hour that she had to spend away from her salon was time spent away from her customers, from her staff, and really getting her business up and running. And so we talked to lots and lots of people just like Tamika who could tell us about their regulatory experience. And I think that's what's unique about the work that we do, is we look at not just what's on the books and what the regulatory environment looks like, but we interact that with how real people experience them as well. So we'll get a little bit into detail about what's going on in St. Louis. So for the city's one-stop shops, we looked at 5 different criteria about how well they guide entrepreneurs through the process. And so St. Louis is about average. Most of the cities that we looked at had about, on average, 2.5 out of the 5 criteria. So the city does a really good job of connecting requirements from different levels of government. So helping entrepreneurs say, okay, this is the license you need to do business in the city, but you also need to make sure you register with the IRS and that you register with the state and things like that. And there are lots of good guides for small businesses as well on the city's website. But what we would really like to see is more of a portal where entrepreneurs can log into one place, complete all of their permit and license and other applications all in one place, track all of those things in one place, and really only have one login to really minimize the number of places they have to go, both physically and online. The cost to start a restaurant in St. Louis is slightly higher than the national average that we've seen. And so, this cost is just the regulatory cost. So just the licenses and permits, including building permits and zoning permits and things like that. So this doesn't include any of the capital outlay that somebody has to do in order to get a restaurant up and running either. And so these are pretty high fees. And particularly when you think about the fact that half of this country lives paycheck to paycheck, coming up with this extra money only for permission to then spend more money to get your business up and running can be a pretty big barrier for entrepreneurs, particularly those who come from more historically unrepresented communities as well. There are also some unique things in St. Louis that we see as well. One is what we call a clean hands requirement. And so that essentially means if you owe any debt to the city, whether that's in unpaid certain taxes or parking tickets or licensing fees or anything like that, you are not able to get any other license or application through the city's process. And so while we understand that we want to make sure that people are paying what they need to on time, this can be a big roadblock for folks who maybe need to get their business up and running so that they can afford to pay these things. Or sometimes we see people get all the way through the process, forget that they had this parking ticket from a few years ago they never paid. And so then they have to go back to square one and start over and get in line again to get their businesses up and running. So not every city has that, but St. Louis does. And that's definitely something that we would recommend taking a look at. And home-based businesses also have a pretty strict environment in St. Louis as well. So you cannot make any direct sales to a client in your home. So if you are a home-based bakery and you're selling, birthday cakes and things like that, if somebody comes to your home to pick up that cake, you can't engage in that transaction in your home. You have to deliver it to their home, take time away from your business in order to conduct that transaction. And then there's also some difficulty in employing people who maybe don't live in the home, which is particularly difficult. And I think something that we've seen throughout COVID especially is that home-based businesses really provide an opportunity and a path to entrepreneurship for people who've never even had that option before. You know, it's the lowest barrier to entry. And so we really encourage cities to take a hard look at their home occupation laws, look at how their zoning treats home occupations, and really see if there's things they can do to make that more accessible for lower income entrepreneurs particularly. And, you know, you are all members of the Reducing Red Tape Committee. You all know how important entrepreneurship is to a community and to local economies, not just as a revenue generator for the city and for individuals as well, but also as a path to economic mobility, as a way to increase equity, increase generational wealth, and as well as, you know, really foster communities. You know, a lot of cities have downtowns with a lot of vacant spaces, and we all know that we want to fill those spaces so that we have more, you know, vibrant downtown communities. And small businesses and entrepreneurs are really the people who are going to, you know, fill those gaps for you. So with all of that research, you know, we've done all of the research, and so at this point we would, you know, like to make a proposal for working with the city, and particularly with this special committee on red tape, to help identify some of those regulatory barriers and see what we can do to fix them. So the first phase of that is mostly done just because we have done this research before when we published our big study, but we would propose also looking very specifically into very specific requirements to really nail down some of the biggest pain points that entrepreneurs experience, as well as talk to the entrepreneurs themselves. So we like to host roundtables and town hall events, meet people where they're at, visit them at their businesses, and hear what their stories were like. And that can tell us things that maybe we wouldn't see in the code. So for example, in other cities, we've heard that, you know, grease trap regulations are a very difficult thing for many entrepreneurs, and that's a very nitty-gritty, very specific regulation that restaurant owners have to deal with. But in hearing about people's experiences, we've learned that that's actually one of the best things that cities can do is reform their grease trap requirements to improve the experience of small restaurant owners. So we'd like to do that kind of nitty-gritty research and community involvement to really figure out what's going on. And then we take all of that and we turn that into a very customized reform strategy. And so that could be everything from, you know, here are some suggestions we have for improving your website, and we can help you find, you know, a good vendor who can help you get that one-stop shop portal really up and running, to here's a draft ordinance that we would draft that will help improve your building permit process, for example. And so something like this could take a long time. It could be a quicker thing. It just kind of depends on what the committee is interested in doing and how quickly the city would like to move to improve some of these things. But this is essentially just kind of an example timeline of what working together may look like, and the time that it would take for us to formalize a partnership, conduct that research and grassroots organizing, and then start working towards putting it in implementation next year. So that is it for us. We appreciate your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. You can also contact us individually. We've got our email addresses here, and I know that the committee has our contact information as well. But we would love to talk with you about any questions you have or anything that we could help make more clear about the regulatory environment in St. Louis.
That's great. Thank you for that, Jennifer. Yeah, let's roll through the committee members here and see if there's any questions or comments that they might have directly for you. Alderwoman, going by seniority, Alderwoman Spencer. Okay, let's come back to her. Alderman Narayan.
I have no questions. Thank you for the presentation.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any questions because as a two-time entrepreneur in the city of St. Louis, I have lived these experiences So I'm so excited about the work and the change we'll be able to make here in this committee, and being able to support of Chairman Oldenburg on the direction he takes this committee in. And I just want to give a little shout out to Jennifer. Thank you for acknowledging Tamika, who is not only a friend of mine, but a constituent. She's a constituent twofold, because she's my constituent and Blocks of Glory's older lady too, and her other business. So I'm just excited to be a part of this work. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's great. It's great. Alderwoman Keys.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you so much for being here today and providing all of the great information. I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Vice Chair Velasquez.
Well, I just want to thank Jennifer and Ava, and I know Jesse's not on this call, but Jesse, for being partners in this. I'm really excited. I don't have any questions because I feel like I've probably asked you a bunch of questions in getting prepared for this. I do just want to say, for the record, and I'll drop the link in the chat, and Tracy or Janice, if you want to share it out, and I hope that our fellow alders on this call will share it, but we actually put a submission form online, and hopefully that does work, at least because I have the edited version, so I get to see it.
It does. I checked it.
Okay, but we do want Alderman Oldenburg and I talked about during this process that we do want robust public engagement. So we encourage all of you to share the link to the submission form with your constituents as we go through this process. You know, we do want to gather some of those narrative stories along with coming up with the data. So please share, but also, again, thank you for your willingness to partner with us and help think things through and be able to create some metrics and data for us to move the city forward and make it easier for entrepreneurs to do what they do best.
A great point. Agreed. Yeah. So that's very much public. There is a survey and a submittal process and questionnaire where feedback can be directly received right online. Also, I do think we're likely, just for the committee's information, we're very likely to take the Institute for Justice up on their offer to help us facilitate public meetings so that we really can go to all corners of the city beyond just virtually, but ensure that we're sitting down with businesses, entrepreneurs. In my mind, the lead blocker here is applying an equity lens so we can, in fact, grow generational wealth. And the easiest and where we can ease pinch points and pain points for the ingenuity of our citizens to start up a business, that's got to be the main driver here. I know Alderwoman Sonia A is out. There are other people on here that are not on the committee, and if they do have any questions, they sat in on the presentation or statements, I do want to acknowledge them. Alderwoman Boyd, do you have any questions for the presenters or of anyone on the committee? You're not allowed to ask the chair any questions, though.
Oh, dang. No, thank you very much. I have no questions.
Thank you, Alderwoman, for joining. Let's see, Alderwoman Schweitzer. Just listening in. Any questions? Yeah.
Of course, I can't find my unmute button for like a solid 30 seconds. Awesome. I am listening in. I have so much excitement for this process, and I appreciate the time and the wonderful presentation. And I look forward to hearing more and staying plugged in. Thanks so much.
Great. Thanks, Alderwoman. Alderman Aldridge, any questions of our presenters or comments? Okay. Well, if you do pipe in. Okay. Well, I mean, I think that concludes what I think is a good first committee meeting for us to sort of get some broad context here of how this committee can help people and what its function is going to be down here at the Board of Aldermen. I do think there will be probably Jennifer and Ava follow-up smaller sessions with committee members and you all directly. I'm also hoping to involve someone from the president's office as well, whether that's Christina Yu or Christine Gracia. So we'll figure that out, but I do want to not lose momentum. So I think maybe a meeting after the holidays is probably in order to talk about next steps of really leveraging your experience, the data you've collected to keep this committee moving forward with its work and its mission. So thanks again for jumping on. You're welcome to stay. There's not much else. I do want to just go over some housekeeping items with the committee members because I do plan for this committee to meet more routinely, and we are going to meet throughout summer break. Not too much, but I do think it's important that we do continually meet. I do want to make sure that we have a handful of public meetings where we are directly hearing from. I think we're going to break it down. Remind me, Alderwoman Velasquez, but I think we're going to kind of break it down by kind of business sector type is how we envision being organized so that we can hear from various components or industry types.
Yes, and if I can jump in to
Please.
just add on to that, it's in the submission form, you'll actually see in the type of business, and people of course can talk about more other businesses besides these, but those are the categories that we envision. They actually align pretty well with the Business for Barriers report. I think that's where we're going to start at least. So you'll see those. So daycare, health, food trucks. I'm just giving you all a smattering. You all can look. But yes.
Great. There also will be a hearing for Board Bill 62. We also did solicit some feedback from the Institute for Justice on that bill, and I think Vice Chair Velasquez and myself are meeting with Alderman Narayan to chat about that tomorrow.
And just to refresh folks, because I forgot the board number, it was 54, you said?
I thought it was 60.
60. That bill is the excise. It's the bill related to the excise department and liquor licensing.
Yes. Great.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for the work you guys do as well. So this is an exciting endeavor that we're embarking upon. I do know there is another call. Some folks want to join a standing call that the mayor has. So I am going to wrap things up. There is no announcements. I'm not entertaining any. My policy on announcements. Excused alderman. We will excuse Alderwoman Sonier for her absence. She did email me and had a conflict and couldn't make it. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Second.
Second. Perfect. All right. With that being said, we've concluded the inaugural meeting for the reduction of red tape in the city of St. Louis. Thanks everyone for your work, and look forward to working with y'all.
Thank you.
John.
Bye bye, guys.